Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is To Lead is to Learn. In this new podcast, we're going to be exploring leadership theories and practices. Motivation is one of the hardest things in leadership to get right, to the extent where getting it wrong can actually feel like getting it right for a short while. One of the biggest mistakes which leaders make is actually thinking that it is their job to take unmotivated followers and work hard to motivate them. Often, leaders end up doing the opposite and demotivate their followers. The mistake which is made here is leaders have the direction of energy flow completely wrong. Motivation comes in two forms: extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is down to external factors, whereas intrinsic motivation comes from within. In order to get the energy flow right within an organization, leaders need to work hard to help their followers grow their internal source of motivation, intrinsic motivation. The way to work on this is to embrace two key factors: theory and trust. Leaders often worry too much about their followers, and in doing so, they take a stance of distrust. They do not believe their followers can be motivated in the absence of them. They have the dynamic completely wrong, and have instead put themselves at the center of the team. We have all heard of the phrase, "there is no I in team." So what does the leader need to do? They need to bestow trust in their employees. They need to empower them to motivate themselves. This needs to come from an understanding of motivational theory and then working on their skills in order to be able to utilize the theories. Within this mini series of podcasts, we will explore some of the key motivational theories and ideas and how they may impact leadership practices. We will take a journey through time and evolve our understanding of motivation from some key studies which were carried out. We shall start in 1943, when Abraham Maslow first published his hierarchy of needs. Within this theory, he postulated that a person will be motivated when all their needs are fulfilled. When we consider the world of work, this hierarchy of needs becomes paramount. The theory suggests that people do not work for security or money, but in order to contribute to a bigger picture and use their skills. This is summarized by Maslow within his pyramid model, a visual representation which he used to show how he believed people are motivated. Within this representation is a more fundamental concept which Maslow put forward, that one cannot ascend to the next level of fulfillment unless their lower level needs are met. The hierarchy places a person's basic needs as the lower levels. Unless someone has these lower level needs met, they cannot work towards satisfying their upper level needs. The hierarchy of needs put forward by Maslow places the following order. At the lowest level are physiological needs. These are basic needs for survival, such as air, water, food, as well as things like sleep, clothing, shelter, and sex. These are in some sense primal needs, instinctive. These are the needs upon which our survival and evolution as a species were based. Without these being fulfilled, the individual would not survive. And in a wider sense, without these needs being met, the species as a whole would not survive. The next level up are our safety needs. These needs go beyond our biological requirements as a living being. Instead, they transcend into external factors which challenge our survivability. These are protection from external threats, deprivation, as well as other dangers. These needs would have once upon a time been the triggers for our fight or flight response, the presence of a predator, the lack of food in our nearby habitat, wildfires, etc. However, within our current environment, we find that these have evolved. These are now factors such as access to healthcare, secure employment, affordability of properties, food availability, and prices. Our next level are social needs. These needs speak to our social element, our base instinct to belong and be part of a collective. As a species, we evolved as pack animals. We thrived due to the need to belong and to look after the collective as well as the individual. These instincts are part of what makes us human. We can see not only these needs in other primates, but also the hierarchy of these needs in action. When observing groups of chimpanzees or other primates in the wild, once they have taken care of the need for territory and gathering food, upon feeling safe, being part of a larger group and with no immediate threats, they start with their social bonding activities, such as grooming and their young taking part in play. Being primates ourselves, we also have this need for belonging and love. This need for association with a greater collective, having a level of affiliation with others. We have a base need for friendship and companionship. The second to last level are the self-esteem needs. These are the first set of needs which speak to our self-awareness. Having met our lower level needs and been socially accepted by the group, our society, we are able to undergo a level of self-reflection which builds us as an individual. Here, we build our self-esteem by measuring our levels of achievement, competence, knowledge, and independence within the social hierarchy of the group. We build our measure of self-worth. This is where external factors come in, such as respect and recognition from others. These social signals and cues feed into our self-evaluation, and if this need is met, it can trigger positive self-reflection and grow our self-confidence, strength, and a sense of capability, being seen as useful in the organization. When self-evaluating, we might find that we are unable to meet these needs. This results in feelings of inferiority, weakness, and helplessness. These are signs of social rejection, which, if we remember, is a trigger for emotional lethargy and can lead instead to self-rumination, excessive amounts of which can lead to psychological dysfunctions such as depression, where an individual can deprive themselves of their base needs. Our final level is self-actualization needs. Having had our self-esteem needs met, we enter the next level of self-awareness, which is where our self-evaluation allows for personal growth. Here, personal development, learning, and aspiring for something greater can come in. The term self-actualization was coined by Kurt Goldstein. This means to realize one's ability within an area where one has potential. In other words, this level is where a person has the motivation to turn their perception of self into reality, to improve their real self towards their ideal self. This then is where we as individuals can enjoy fun tasks, be creative, and approach challenges. This level is where motivation for more than survival and fitting in comes into play. This is the element of society where an individual has reached the point of developing themselves, and as a result, they have the potential to progress society as a whole. This level is where the motivation we desire within the workplace takes place, a motivation beyond just the individual, and towards a shared purpose. Under this model, proposed by Maslow, once a need has been met, these no longer act as motivators, and instead the individual has progressed to the next level. Maslow suggests, therefore, that an individual cannot reach a given level of motivation without their lower levels being fulfilled. For example, take someone who is short of food. They are hungry. They would be motivated by the ability to get some food. A predator in the wild is motivated to hunt when they are hungry. They will hunt and kill prey for food. However, once they are fed, they are less motivated and in fact even see prey with a full tummy and will not chase and kill it. A person who is barely getting by on their income is motivated by money. They need more in order to ensure their safety needs, to pay their bills. As such, they are motivated to work longer hours to secure more income and ensure they are able to pay their bills and buy food. Social motivators are why people prefer going into work than prolonged periods of working from home. The act of going into work provides socialization. This is a key motivator as to why some people who are able to retire often choose to continue working. Socializing and belonging in a group is also a key motivator behind group sports and other group activities which people will partake in optionally, investing their time for a collective cause or even when it comes to the act of volunteering. This model has been around for 80 years. However, there are criticisms of this theory. These include the fact that the needs may not be discrete and may not follow this definitive hierarchical order. Some may overlap. For example, there may be a social need which takes precedence even when a safety need has not been met. This may be because a social need may result in fulfilling the safety need. After all, there is safety within a group. The hierarchy order may not apply in all occasions. Different situations, places, and in fact times may change the order. Research has shown that people's behaviour at any time is guided by a large number of factors. This makes behaviour largely unpredictable and casts doubt onto Maslow's proposed model of one need at a time being satisfied. It has been proposed that, in case of some people, their level of motivation may be permanently lower, suggesting there is an individualized factor for motivation, be it genetic or environmental. An example may be someone suffering from chronic unemployment, remaining satisfied for the rest of their life, providing they are able to obtain enough food. This model is widely accepted by leaders due to its intuitive nature and its ease of understanding and applying it to practice. Therefore, as a leader, it may be important to have an understanding of what level a member of the team is currently at. If they want to progress that individual towards the level of self-actualization, they need to provide them the environment and resources to fulfill the lower level needs. Once the members of the team are fulfilled within their lower level and intermediate levels, they can work together more effectively, motivated towards a common goal. Our second key idea is going to come from Harlow's monkeys. While Maslow was working on his hierarchy of needs, Professor Harry F. Harlow was experimenting with monkeys. In 1949, his work with 2 rhesus monkeys changed our understanding of motivation for good. In one experiment, they devised a simple mechanical puzzle toy which involved 3 steps to solve: pulling out a pin, undoing a hook, and lifting up a hinged cover. The experiment they were carrying out involved placing this toy within the cages of the monkeys. This served 2 purposes. The first was to get the monkeys used to the presence of the puzzle, and the second was to see how they reacted to the puzzle itself. This observational period lasted 2 weeks, with the aim being to test the monkeys with the puzzles at the end of the 2-week period. However, what was most surprising about this experiment was an unexpected finding. The monkeys began to play with the puzzles without any outside driver to do so. There were no external rewards being given for their engagement with the puzzle, but the monkeys all started to fixate and play with the puzzles with ever more focus and determination. They seemed to find enjoyment in the act of solving the puzzles. They soon figured out how the puzzles worked. By the time the 2 weeks were up and the true experiment was carried out, the monkeys had all become very adept in solving the puzzles. They had practiced and got quicker and quicker at solving them, without any external drivers whatsoever. There were no food rewards, no affection, no recognition even. It was already known that there were 2 drivers behind animal behaviour: an external driving factor, or rewards and punishments for certain behaviours, and then biological drivers, examples of which would be hunger when we need food, thirst when we need water, or lust when we need or want to copulate. However, Harlow's experiment had unveiled something else. The puzzles had no biological reward associated with it. There were no rewards of food or water. Instead, there was an innate curiosity there. Harlow himself was shocked by this and suggested this posed some interesting questions for motivational theory. What was posited was that there was a third driving factor, another source of intrinsic motivation beyond the biological drivers. There was an internal motivation which drives an ever-improving performance for the task. There was a desire to be better, which provided an intrinsic reward. This has since become known as intrinsic motivation. The next finding threw a further spanner in the works for the current motivation theory. When an external factor, food, was introduced at the end of the 2 weeks, the monkeys in fact started to perform significantly worse at the task of solving the puzzles, as if the act of externally rewarding the monkeys actually diminished their desire to perform well. This was an idea which took a further 20 years before we really started to get a handle on this strange finding. Intrinsic motivation, however, has proven to be a key driver behind performance, and we have been struggling with utilizing this idea within our organizations ever since. For leaders, we need to understand how and when intrinsic motivation manifests itself. From Harlow's experiment, we can see that very simplistic idea of this. It appears to be most prevalent when challenges and opportunities to be creative arise, when the freedom and time to explore these solely for the love of the act of trying. Successes and progress then appear to motivate individuals even more. What seems to get in the way is external factors, restraints and procedures, policies and pressures. When the space for intrinsic motivation is squashed, so too is the intrinsic motivator. The simplest advice for leaders from this appears to be: provide the challenge and opportunity to be creative, and then get out of the way in order to create the space for individuals to grow intrinsically. In 1959, Frederick Herzberg published his work, The Motivation Hygiene Theory. This theory classifies needs into two categories: hygiene factors and motivating factors. The theory extended the work of Maslow by taking the needs and considering them as belonging to two groups. The findings came from a study which he did on 200 accountants and engineers by asking them two questions. The first was, when did you feel particularly good about your job? And the second one was, when did you feel exceptionally bad about your job? The responses he found were both interesting and consistent. The replies to the first question were significantly different to those of the second. It may seem intuitive now, but after the findings, what he found was that the responses to times of feeling good about their job were strongly associated with job satisfaction, while times of feeling bad about their job was associated with job dissatisfaction. It's important to note here that Herzberg did not define job satisfaction and job dissatisfaction as opposites. This is because the factors of dissatisfaction, when removed, doesn't actually lead to job satisfaction. This is an important aspect to take on board when considering this model. Also, Herzberg postulates that motivating factors can become hygiene factors once someone achieves them. In other words, the line between satisfaction and dissatisfaction moves as the new norm is experienced. Within this theory, the broad premise is that hygiene factors can have a detrimental impact on motivation. However, they do not in fact improve motivation. In other words, with poor hygiene factors, motivation can be destroyed. But if these are improved, then under most circumstances, motivation is not improved. Therefore, working on hygiene factors alone is not sufficient to motivate people. Other factors, namely motivator factors, are actually required. What are the hygiene factors within this model then? These factors are considered dissatisfiers. Under this group comes working conditions, status, pay, policies and rules, job security, as well as co-worker relations and supervisor quality, the quality of the leaders. These are, in other words, the people, structure, and routine within the organization. When these factors are good, then we have developed a baseline to build upon, a platform upon which job satisfaction grows, and we're able to develop motivation. However, when these are poor, then we drop into job dissatisfaction, and this has a detrimental effect on motivation. The motivator factors, which help build job satisfaction and grow motivation, involve the work itself, levels of achievement and recognition, as well as advancement and responsibility. Ultimately, this comes down to personal growth. When a person experiences themselves growing, they become motivated. However, there are some criticisms to this theory, and these include people having a tendency to take credit themselves when things go well. They are very reluctant to relinquish this and attribute it to external factors. They also tend to blame external factors for failure. Therefore, the two factors may be true for the organization. However, without recognition of the organization, the motivators will not be acknowledged and therefore seen as motivators. Now, despite being credited as a motivation theory, it kind of seems to explain a little bit more about job satisfaction than motivation itself. Despite being critical, job satisfaction is not generally measured on an overall basis, An individual may well dislike part of their job, however, they may still consider their job pretty acceptable. Therefore, job satisfaction is much more of an individual measure and will be different for different individuals, and therefore it's likely to vary on a daily basis. But this model is more applicable to leaders due to the ability to identify satisfiers and dissatisfiers. It can be easily implemented by organizations. This can be used as a reflection tool by the organization on a regular basis. The premise of fixing and improving on any dissatisfier can be considered as getting your house in order before expecting employees to be motivated and therefore get good results. The final theory we're going to look at in this part of the series is McGregor's participation theory, which is also known as Theory X and Theory Y. In 1960, Douglas McGregor suggested that there were two types of human beings based on the participation of workers. In essence, these two types polarize people into two groups, a positive side and a negative side. He outlined these two groups in a book he called The Human Side of Enterprise. Although his two groups were focused around workers, in reality they refer to two approaches of leadership, authoritarian and participative. These he called Theory X and Theory Y. Theory X suggests an attitude adopted by leaders whereby they assume that people are inherently idle, that workers will, without an external force, avoid working and do as little as possible. This approach presumes a lack of ambition and a dislike of responsibility of the workforce, suggesting that people prefer to be directed by others. There is an assumption here that the workers are self-centered and are indifferent to the needs and goals of the organization they work for. There is an underlying thought that the workers are not very bright and incapable of decision making or being independent. This Theory X may seem a little outdated. However, what it does do is highlight the assumptions made when a leader uses a very hands-on authoritarian approach. There is a level of distrust of the members of the team, an assumption of a lack of motivation to do the work, and therefore requiring constant monitoring. This involves micromanagement and very little room for empowerment, decision-making, and creativity. On the contrary, Theory Y concludes that people are not passive by nature. Instead, they're accepting of organizational goals. This approach assumes that people seek responsibility and want to be successful. Under this approach, people are considered to be capable of directing their own behavior and assuming a level of independence, as there is an underlying need for achievement and therefore an inherent level of motivation to succeed. Theory Y therefore highlights a level of trust within the employees, where members of the team can work without supervision and take pride in their work, seeing it as a challenge to approach and achieve that, removing the need for constant monitoring, instead providing room for creativity and independent decision making. This is a more hands-off approach to leadership. Instead, it empowers the members of the team. The Theory X and Theory Y model outlines the extreme cases which can occur, and in reality postulates that leaders are susceptible to swinging between the two, as leaders share traits of the two approaches at the same time. So what causes the swing? This can be changes in mood, motives, and changes within the team and working environment. Therefore, this model is a useful reminder to leaders of the assumptions which their followers may feel has been made about them. When we as leaders take an overbearing, micromanaging stance, we come across as untrusting. We make our team feel like we do not have faith that they value the work, and instead we stifle creativity and independence. What we need to remember is the old adage of the self-fulfilling prophecy. When individuals are made to feel untrusted, that they're not capable of making their own decisions or having a level of independence, this will therefore make them believe it about themselves and will create a workforce which is unmotivated and they do not actually value their work anymore. They will feel like they have no say in what they do, and therefore they will not become invested in it. The contrary is also true. When we provide them with space, we empower decision making and creativity, we bestow trust on them. They are more likely to grow into this space and value their work. This is an example of the Pygmalion effect, where our beliefs about others impacts how we act towards them. This then feeds into their beliefs about themselves and their actions, which we then use to change and cement our beliefs about them. As a leader, it all starts with the judgments we make of our team and therefore our beliefs about them. And that's a very important point to finish on. Once again, I'm going to leave you with 3 final questions. The first question considers the work of Maslow and Herzberg. As a leader, what lower level needs or hygiene factors should we be looking at taking care of in order for our followers to be in a space where they can become motivated towards achieving our common goal? The second question considers the work of Harlow. As a leader, how can we go about providing challenges and opportunities to be creative, and then creating the conditions necessary for our followers to become intrinsically motivated at work? The third question considers the work of McGregor. As a leader, how can we become more of a theory why leader? Do we micromanage and squash the opportunities for our followers to show us that they can take the initiative? Can we get ourselves out of the way, bestow trust, and allow our followers to show that they deserve our trust? And until next time, remember, to lead requires us to continuously